Hey, before we kick things off, we got to talk about the beverage of the weekend. Danny, please let the people know about the beverage of the weekend.
Miller Lite has been waiting for you to drink it all year now, even more so than you do every other day of the week. St. Patrick's Day, Miller Lite to St. Patrick's Day is like gingerbread cookies to Christmas. Get yours stocked up, get yours ready. While you're there, look at this sweater I'm wearing right now. Not only do they have great beer, but they have great merch too.
They got it all.
They got a nice merch.
I didn't love that gingerbread cookie analogy.
There's a better analogy.
Yeah. Yeah. Because Miller, the gap between Miller Lite taste and gingerbread cookie taste is wider than the Grand Canyon.
What's more specific, though? You're right, but what's more
pumpkin
specific?
pie to
What's for
Thanksgiving?
Turkey to Thanksgiving.
Turkey to Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry,
nobody
guys.
likes turkey really either.
I like turkey. Anyways, but not as much as I love Miller Lite.
Yeah.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a beer can chicken. I'm going to do that.
I've never done that.
Yeah. And that's what Miller Lite you can do. It doesn't matter the occasion. We've had great weather lately. We got Miller Lite for St. Patrick's Day. Maybe you have a little food color in there for the holiday spirit. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I mean, celebration just is better with Miller Lite. So
Yep.
celebrate St. Patrick's Day this year with Miller Lite. Go to MillerLite.com/redline to find delivery options near you, or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere that they sell beer. It tastes like Miller Time Chicago. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. Make sure you're getting your Miller this weekend, and be early. Make sure you early as in stock up. Don't be left out. And then if you are, you got that delivery code, so it's nice for you.
If there was ever a time to pre-order Miller Lite, it's this week.
It is.
Well, because you know what you're getting into.
Yes.
That liquor store is like a Walmart on Black Friday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is.
And even if you can't order too much on St. Patrick's Day.
No.
Because if you have leftover, big deal. You got more Miller Lite for next weekend's. The tournament's right around the corner, so you're in a great spot.
Exactly. Great beverage.
Mm-hmm.
On that note, all right, Bang Bang, welcome to the mid-show. Today's show, we are joined by White Sox General Manager Chris Getz. He gets put on the hot seat by my friend to the right, and all of us, as a matter of fact, because we were all in the interview.
Mm-hmm.
That's coming up later. Dave, how'd you feel about it?
I've had a lot of time to think about it. I think it was a good interview. It was a good interview. I had no idea what we were getting into because I've never said a word to Chris Getz before, and this was set up through the White Sox instead of going directly to Getz like I used to do with the previous regime. So I didn't know what to expect because I had never said anything to him. But with that said, he was a little long-winded, and the conspiracy theorist in me says he might have been filibustering just a tad, maybe more than a tad, I don't know. But in the end, I do think it was a good interview, a lot of good info. You guys seem to kind of come away more impressed than I did just because I've heard a lot of the same shit for years and years. So it's more, I'm looking for action instead of just words without substance behind them.
I would argue that there is substance behind it already.
There is. I mean,
So the big takeaway for me from that interview is culture, and you guys will hear it later.
Mm-hmm.
And he has already taken steps to improve that, remove some of the bad apples. And so to me, it's not just empty words. He was like, we have to get the culture right. I'm taking everybody who was an issue is gone. Mm-hmm. And the vibes did feel good. Even though it was spring training.
And I hate saying that to White Sox fans because I heard it through Chuck Garfien and Scott Merkin and all the beat guys prior to us getting down to Arizona that, vibes are different. It's like, shut the fuck up about the vibes because I don't want to hear about the vibes when we know what the season is going to be, which is going to be a long season with a lot of losing in it. But that said, the vibes were different when I was down there. Compared to past conversations I had with players over the last handful of years in what became a dumpster fire embarrassment of a organization. So
you got ball players now. You got team guys, you got ball players. You're gonna lose, but you're gonna lose a ton of games, but you might not hate them as much as you did last year. I think that's
an impossibility.
Right.
That's
exactly.
an impossibility to hate a team as much as I hated the White Sox last year. I mean, I'm not kidding when I say this. The last game I went to was the Velcro game, and that was end of July, I believe.
I love that it's deemed as the Velcro
The
game.
Velcro game is great.
Yeah.
And I don't think I even watched him on TV more than 5-8 times after
why would
that.
you?
Not even like on a Tuesday night, there's nothing to do throwing the Sox. Like I would check in pitch to pitch, and they would just disgust me in that 10-pitch sample that I'd watch. So much to the point that I would just turn them off because I couldn't stomach it. I don't think it's going to be like that this year. And
that was very telling to me that when we were at their facility and we were, kind of mixing it up with some of the guys, you were like, I don't even know who a lot of these people are. And I'm like, what? You don't know his college? You don't know fucking
That's
what
the
kind
thing.
of...
I'm sick of
You don't know if he
looking-
went to Williamsport or not?
I'm sick of looking at prospects because of all the prospects we just had that didn't pan out. I think the one that actually did was probably Dylan Cease. And we'll talk about him in a moment.
Actually, you know what? We're already the can is open. Let's make this White Sox talk, and we'll do Justin Fields after Getz. So let's continue with that. So what do you got on Dylan Cease?
On Dylan Cease, he's over the last 24 hours. It looks like they are nearing the finish line on a deal for him. And now that surprised the fuck out of me because like kind of once pitchers and catchers report, you got like a week, 10 days of there may be trades, and then it's like, all right, this is your team. This is who you're going to war with until like May-ish. Like the Sox traded for James Shields at the end of May or mid-May or so. And then you got that until the deadline. So to hear like, Morosi and Heyman and Rosenthal and all the local beat guys say, hey, the Sox are like really putting like, trade winds are blowing.
And
that
is that
surprises
just as
me.
reactionary to the news about
And by the time you guys
Eric
hear
Cole?
this podcast,
Yeah, people should very much note that right now it is 10:56 a.m. on Wednesday,
Yes.
Central Time. A lot can happen with not just Dylan Cease, but also Justin Fields.
Yeah.
over the next
So
24
we will.
hours.
There's a
yes.
good chance we'll be tacking something on at the
We
end.
might have an
Yeah.
emergency
Yes.
podcast tomorrow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's where we are at the moment, though.
All right. Well, it happened. We're here. This is the emergency stitched in podcast that we thought might happen. It did happen. Dylan Cease traded. It's just me and White Sox Dave for this part. Dave, how you feeling?
First of all, I got to say a special fuck you to the White Sox for always doing this when I'm out doing personal shit. I was at Best Buy yesterday. I had like an hour and a half before I had to stream last night where I could go to Best Buy, pick out an appliance package for my new kitchen, and head home to do other work shit. And then I look at my phone, and of course, Dylan Cease had been traded in the one window where I wasn't near a computer. So I hate them for that on top of other things. And the way I describe this deal is sans getting a like Jackson Holiday or a couple of those Rangers prospects in return. I was never going to like this trade. It was always going to be a variation of how much I hate this trade because the whole goal is to win baseball games and win championships, and you don't do that by trading your best players with years of control, especially on the heels of what the aborted fetus that was the previous rebuild. I have the Jerry Reinsdorf quote pulled up from August 31st of 2023, and that says, one of the things that I owe fans is to get better as fast as we possibly can get better. Speed is of the essence. I don't want this to be a long-term proposition. It's going to be a long-term proposition.
Yep.
It's going to be a very painful couple of years. That it's going to be a ghost town at 35th and Shields this year, and rightfully so. It is the organization's fault, and I am disgusted that we are talking about trading Dylan Cease right now.
So how you said it's a matter of how much you hate the trade on
Pretty
a
much,
scale
yes.
of 1 to 10. Where is the hate?
So 10. So if 10's like it's just moderate hate, I guess. And 0 is like this couldn't be possibly worse. It's like a 6, 7.
Okay.
They didn't get like some freak headliner, which if you followed his trade market over the last, I don't know, since the deadline last year, even last year, then you kind of knew that you weren't getting that like true A-list prospect like Sale and Quintana got when they were dealt 7 years ago. So I was always kind of expecting that, but at the same time, like I'm done looking at a number next to a prospect ranking and fawning over these guys that have never stepped foot on a major league diamond, other than to throw out the first pitch after they got drafted or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't do that anymore because I don't trust that even if these guys do pan out, which and that's not to say that I don't think they will, because I do like a lot of these pieces in a vacuum. I don't trust that they will put the proper pieces around them in the future to start winning baseball games again.
Yep.
That goes into where I I'm just in wait and see mode.
Yeah. How many more years of control did he have for the record?
Cease?
Yeah.
2.
Okay. So he struggled last year.
He didn't struggle.
He wasn't the Cy Young candidate
right.
he was the year before.
Right.
That's my point. So it feels like, why trade him? Why be in the rush to trade him now? If this is the return where you're not getting that high end guy, why not wait to see if he bounces back to that kind of Cy Young form if you still have control?
I think that's a fair question. I do think that money was a factor here. I do know that, like for instance, Lorenzen, who pitched on Detroit last year, he's been with the Reds and other teams, and then Mike Clevenger. Their agents have been told that they aren't allowed to sign those players until Cease is dealt. So it was a money thing in the end too. Like, he had to gut payroll as much as possible. And this is the one guy that had value. Eloy, I'm not sure. I know they tried to give away Eloy to anybody who would take the money off the books, and they just didn't have a taker. Same with Mancada this winter. But Cease was obviously someone that they could trade and acquire assets for in terms of prospect capital, but at the same time
How can they not afford $8 million for Dylan Cease?
It's because they know what the stadium's going to look like this year. It's Jerry Reinsdorf saying there's not going to be any fans this year. We're not paying that $8 million. That's just what it is when you lay out everything, lay out all the facts, and it's bad. It's bad. But I'm like, that's me talking as a fan. Like, I don't want to gut out another rebuild. And Jerry Reinsdorf said it himself, it's going to be a quick turnaround. It's obviously not. He was obviously lying again. Payroll is of the essence, and lowering it as much as possible is of the essence, not speed and winning baseball games. That's not and never has been of the essence. It's never has been for Jerry Reinsdorf. I don't care how many times people who know him tell me he's the most competitive guy around, because he's not. He doesn't care about winning first and foremost. Now on the return, there are not a lot of nice pieces.
Say that again.
There are nice pieces in return. Drew Thorpe, and like Eddie and I were talking about yesterday, like, I used to know every organization's top 30 front and back, every stat they had, their projectability. I knew all that. Being as these were the years that the White Sox were supposed to be winning, I stopped kind of looking at that stuff.
Yeah.
Because I expected the big league team to be good, so I don't care what the fifth ranked
You're not in
prospect
rebuild mode.
The Padres organization
I do the same thing.
Yeah. So Drew Thorpe, digging into him, the first thing that people talk about with him, well, two things. One of the absolute best pitches in baseball in his changeup. His changeup is legit, like, apparently Johan Santana, like, good. His fastball, on the other hand, is, like, not good. I was watching tape of him last night. His breaking pitches and third and fourth offerings are kind of thought of as being pretty good. I thought they looked really good in what I was watching. Granted, that was just one start where he had like 6 strikeouts in the first 2 innings. But if he has an elite changeup, 2+ pitches in his curveball and slider, and with absurdly good control, which is what he has, that's a fine first piece.
Okay.
Kind of a low ceiling, high floor guy, mid rotation guy. I would assume that he is going to be in the rotation quickly after getting a cup of coffee in Charlotte. But I don't even think that they should put him in Charlotte, because it's such a launching pad there.
Yeah.
Like, it's a little league field. He's not going to learn anything there, and he's a pitcher before a thrower, which is like the opposite of the Kopechs of the world that they acquired prior to this year. So I would imagine that he's going to get his time in Birmingham, maybe a handful of starts, and then come June or so that he will be in the rotation. Great, lovely. Next up, on the exact flip side, was a guy named Sam Savala. Sam Savala is the exact opposite in terms of prospects, as he's a high ceiling, low floor guy. He might not ever sniff the majors, but he has got tools on tools on tools.
Okay. Any relation?
No relation to Sebi. Not that I don't think, at least. But no relation to Sebi. He walked at a 17.5 clip through about 800 something at bats or plate appearances as a teenager in low A and high A last year. That's like Frank Thomas eyeballs.
Okay.
That said, strikes out like at a 32% clip right now. Does have really nice pull power. He has a lot of filling out to do, a lot of development. Now, under the previous regime, including Chris Getz as the head of player development, that's not the kind of guy the White Sox you could trust them to develop. The loud tools guys that you have to really hone in on crafting them as a baseball player. Mm-hmm. They struggled with that mightily, and Tim Anderson, that's one exception to the rule. I guess Colson Montgomery is another one because he was like a later first-round draft pick that guys didn't really know who he was as a pick. He's obviously developing fantastically. So maybe I'm talking myself out of it, maybe I'm not, but like I don't trust that as we sit right now, they will tap into tools and make him a everyday major league player.
Which
that said, if they do,
great, more
power to them. Lovely, that's what they're here for. Hopefully, the new staff that gets is built around him can tap into those tools. And I was trying to think of a player comp for him. I couldn't really think of one off the top of my head. It was kind of Adam Eaton a little bit. And if Adam Eaton had a 5 or 7 year stretch where he was an awesome baseball player. So if they have something like that, great. Next up is a cat by the name of Jairo Iriarte. Another guy, huge fastball, like 17.5 Ks per 9 throughout the minors this far. I would imagine that he will be in the bullpen very quickly, assuming he can hone his command, which has not been good this far. They may be giving him a shot to keep starting as well. I don't know. And then a 29 reliever named Steven Wilson, who's been good for like 50 innings the last few years, who I'd imagine they flip at the deadline, and that adds to this return.
Yeah.
So nothing really sexy about this deal. It didn't have the headliner, and it sounded like Getz was drawing a line in the sand with Cease over the last, like 8-9 months, whatever it's been. And it is odd to me that this is the return with that line drawn. So I'm guessing it was like, hey, it was a directive from Jerry Reinsdorf saying, hey, you're still over budget. You need to get something more off the books, and that's where the Padres step in. Now, what I'm curious to see is because the Padres are in a weird spot right now as well.
I didn't get why they would.
I didn't really understand it from their perspective either.
It's like they were just selling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now all of a sudden they're buying again with prospect capital, and you got a division with the Dodgers. The Diamondbacks just went to the World Series. Like that's a fucking tough division. Yep. The Giants are always, they're bad.
They're a good organization.
Good organization.
Yeah.
It didn't really make sense to me, but Preller's like. He's known for wheeling and dealing, and I wouldn't be surprised if Cease is flipped again. So
that's what I was going to ask you, because that's something that would infuriate me.
It will infuriate me.
They gave up, hey, we'll give you, not that the 100 rankings are everything, but we'll give you a guy who's in the 60s and a guy's like 109, and then we'll trade him at the deadline or next winter after he has a nice year for a much better haul.
And I was reading
that's a good if you're the Padres, like that's
really fucking nice
good,
piece. And
that's
you
good
know
business
he's going to be healthy
for $8 million.
For $8 million and guaranteed 30 starts and of potentially Cy Young ability. Like that's the thing. Like
it just feels
Blake
very
Snell
short-sighted.
Is good for like 120 innings. Dylan Cease is good for 30 starts a year.
Yep.
He leads. I want to say Cole has him edged out by like 16 innings since 2018.
Oh, really?
It's something like that. Yeah, he's a complete workhorse, and that is lost in today's game. Obviously, those types of guys. So that will definitely infuriate me should that happen. But like I said, it's all a version of hate until they start winning games at the major league level. Like I remember back in 2017, 2018, 2019, like I fucking subscribed to MILB's like monthly package to watch Charlotte and Birmingham games
on
my computer just so I could watch I'm not doing that this year, in spite of the prospect rankings, in spite of the potential that these guys have. Now, I will say with both Rick Hahn and Getz, because Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams, that loser, was they were in charge of last year's deadline, and they didn't get fired until August of last year. They have done a nice job of adding a shit ton of depth to the farm system. Now, it still lacks, aside from Colson Montgomery, that true star power, at least, and I hate doing this, it's hypocritical of me in spite of the prospect ranking number right next to their names. But they need to figure out, and we're going to talk about this in the Getz interview coming up a little bit, a better way to supplement the true star depth in the lower levels of the organization, because they haven't done that very well at all. And if they're not going to spend big on free agents, and if all these guys like Robert's coming up soon too. You know that's happening. If they're going to be dealing these guys, then you need to start acting like a team like the Rays or the Cardinals that just have an influx of Padres.
Just always have guys.
Just always have guys coming through. Not you can't have guys like Ojer Sam or Despond. Like what the? They have so many guys that just they sign off this. It's bad. It's very bad.
So I guess the way that you're laying it out, if that's true, then it's just like, why even have a general manager? Because you're not letting you did the same thing with Hahn, where I was like, yep, like go get do the rebuild, get all then we'll open up the purse strings, so we'll get somebody big. They didn't let him hire his own manager, supposedly.
No,
rumored. And then now Chris Getz, the first big decision. Hey, we have one piece right now that we could. Well, right, sure.
Yeah.
But if you're looking to rebuild and maybe even this is the first step towards being the Rays, if that's the type of organization you want to be, like you have an obligation to not have a runway that is 6 months. Which is kind of like, hey, like we have to make money inside of this 6 months, so you got to cut $8 million off the books. Mm-hmm. Just get what you can get. That feels like a very short-sighted way to run your business, and it's just more of the same. Like they should just let Jerry. Otherwise, it's just like you guys are accountants and not baseball guys, and you're just Jerry just does whatever he wants, and I guess that's his right as the owner. But it's like why even have Chris Getz sit down with us if he doesn't have the autonomy to ultimately make the decisions, and you just fire him in a few years when the managerial, the ownership decisions kill the team again.
Right. That it's round and round we go.
Yeah.
Like people have gotten on me for being a Hahn bot. We talked about this with the 108 guys, but I truly think that the rug was pulled from under his feet in various ways leading up to his firing. Yep. And where it went wrong wasn't Hahn's decision or Kenny Williams' decision. It was always Jerry Reinsdorf's decision not to sign Harper or Machado, not to sign anybody the next offseason or the offseason after that or the offseason after that. Like AJ Pollock, that's your Machado, that's your Harper. Okay. It's just bad. And until it's like I said, wait and see. Hope to catch lightning in a bottle, but until ownership changes, it's going to be round and round we go. And I don't envy the position that Getz is in right now, because of who his boss is. It's going to be very tough for him, and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt to an extent, because he will have a different vision, and he doesn't have to answer to anybody but Jerry like Hahn did. Hahn had to answer to Kenny. Getz doesn't have that, so that's a good thing. So hopefully his vision can be enacted without tampering from other places,
mm-hmm.
and they they're at least like let's call them I don't know, who's someone that doesn't piss you off a lot, you just don't even notice them, like the Brewers. I know we're in Chicago, so that's not the case, but like someone like that.
The Reds. Well,
the Reds stink always. The Brewers
Reds are coming.
Yeah, they're coming, but they come every 6 years
Yeah.
or so.
But
But the Brewers are like consistently there at least.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Okay. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, but like no one's thinking about the Brewers on outside of Chicago.
No,
or
like no one's
Milwaukee.
thinking.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
You know that's what
Yeah.
I'm getting at. Or even like
Yep.
the Twins or the Indians or the Guardians.
Yeah.
Like one of those teams. That's like what I would love to be until ownership changes. Just one of those teams. But it's going to be a long couple years. It's going to be a long couple years. Even with the good vibes that the players are bringing right now. So I guess on that point we can just cut to the Getz interview.
All right.
Whoosh.
Before we do, though, we do want to talk about our friends at Chevy Drive Chicago. The auto show may be over, but the best deals at your Chevy dealer are still going. If it's time for a new car, your local Chevy dealer is something for you. The all-new Equinox, Trax, and Blazer are SUVs you'll want to test drive and drive often. Giving everything from style to comfort, safety, and plenty of room, there is a Chevy SUV for you. So you're like, what, a weekend?
Yeah.
How's it marinating? How's it going?
I'm loving it. Okay. I wasn't going to complain about this, but I was pretty convinced that the automatic trunk like short-circuited or broke or something, and I was just going to not say anything because I'm like, this truck is a week old, and I'm not going to make a big deal of it because I love Chevy Drive Chicago as a sponsor. So I called them, and I'm like, hey, this thing is fucked already, or this thing is messed up already. And they're like, oh, my God, I'm so sorry. Have you tried turning it back on? And I'm like, maybe. Why don't you tell me how to turn it back on? And there's like a little knob on the driver's side door. That's all I had to do. I hit it with my foot. But that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Like they do give you like that personal level of service and care. They're like, here's our cell phone. Call us anytime you need anything. And they do that. It's not just because they're a partner of ours. The dealers that I've worked with,
they probably have no idea. Right?
They don't really know. They just care about
quality service
and their customers. So Chevy Drive Chicago, the absolute best. The Blazer's awesome. Can't recommend it enough. So yeah, go to ChevyDriveChicago.com to learn about dealers near you.
Yeah. Credit to them. They could have called you a complete idiot.
Yeah. Yes, they should have.
And they didn't.
And I am a complete idiot when it comes to cars, and they take their time to explain things, and they don't make you feel like an idiot, even though I am, and they could.
That's what it's all about at Chevy.
Yep.
It is. Head to ChevyDriveChicago.com to learn more about these cars and find your local Chevy dealer today. All right, Dave, give us a whoosh. Give it to a
whoosh.
Boom.
All right, we're joined by Chris Getz for the interview portion of today's show. White Sox general manager. We right off the bat, we've never met each other. You're not as familiar with Barstool Sports or what we do as Rick Hahn was in the previous front office. So figured a good way to just, break the ice, introduce ourselves would be to talk some Big Ten football, some NFC North football. Congrats on the Michigan championship and the Lions' success this year.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, it was, I've got, my son who's become a Michigan fan, and being that I grew up in Detroit, we went through some tough times as as a child and an adult, actually just my whole life with the struggles of the Lions. And then we had some success this year. And I said, son, don't get used to this. It's a rarity to have, to be walking around the neighborhood flexing like this.
You never know, though. He might have a completely different experience than you, which is kind of crazy to think about.
I know.
Like with how things go.
Yeah. Well, we've got to have things to complain about, though, right?
That's true.
The Pistons.
That's true.
That's right.
Because even the Wings are back.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, poor guys.
Yeah.
Are you going to miss Harbaugh?
I am. going to I understand why he's leaving. Mm-hmm. I mean, his legacy is now, cemented. But you look back and, we were an irrelevant team within the Big Ten almost, right? But, to bring us back to the national stage, he did that. And, he will be missed. But I certainly understand why he's leaving. But, man, he did some really awesome things.
What's the most pissed off you've ever been at the Lions or University of Michigan?
Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah, I probably was upset through the years, prior to Jim Harbaugh, to be honest with you. And I don't want to name names, but the years of, Brady Hoke and Rich Rod were just struggles.
Rich Rod.
But I'm going to go ahead and
I don't want to name names, but Lions. I mean, gosh, a success story was 8-8, 9-7. Those Wayne Fonts years. the 0-16 team wasn't exactly, but you kind of checked out on that season pretty early.
Right.
You didn't see a lot of success there. So, even though, they obviously had a lot of success this year and we're so close to getting to the Super Bowl, but my son did get pretty upset. There were some tears. But I told him, we got a lot to be proud of.
It's better to be in it. It's better to be in it and be crushed than to be irrelevant.
Better to love. What's the quote? Love and then
lost and never love at all.
Well, also, I did tell, I told him I floated the idea that we would go to Vegas, and so there was probably, he's heard these stories about Vegas, right? So he's probably pretty excited about the chance to go with his dad out there.
Yeah, go to circus with his dad. It'd be nice.
Yeah, but I also probably saved $40,000.
It's a wash.
So I'm coming to you like as a diehard Sox fan. We're on the topic of fandom, and prior to us hitting record today, you had mentioned that you didn't like your quote about how you didn't like last year's team, and I got here right off the bat, and vibes are good. Like, we saw Danny Mendick talk to Cease a little bit in there. Everybody seems to be bouncing off the walls. Is it an actual newly cultivated clubhouse energy, or is that just it's spring training? Everybody's happy to be playing baseball again.
I'd like to say that it's just part of the culture that we're establishing here. Spring training is, there's always, a level of optimism regardless, right? You haven't really, you haven't played games yet. You're not really looking at a win and loss record. The struggles haven't hit. However, we've been very intentional with the types of people that we brought in here, from front office to coaching staff to employees throughout the organization, and certainly players that they're about the right things. They represent the organization well, selfless individuals, and if you bring in enough of those types, I feel like we're gonna minimize or suffocate the bad, and the ultimate goal here is to obviously win a championship, but go beyond what expectations are, right? And I think anyone that's been a White Sox fan or been part of the organization, always felt like you were coming up short. Well, we need to at least reach expectations or go beyond. That's what we're aiming for.
Best year in team history. It was a year that nobody on earth expected them to do. So yeah. Obviously, fans are frustrated right now. I am one of those fans that are frustrated. I want to kind of use this interview as a way to talk about all the parts of the organization that do need to be addressed. From the scouting department all the way up through the 26-man roster through the front office. But I don't want it to be like an airing of grievances, Seinfeld style, or anything like that. I want it to be, hey, we weren't doing this well prior to me being hired, as in you. This is why you should be excited about what's to come this year and well into the future. So coming from the scouting side and the player development side, mostly player development side, you right off the bat, you hired Brian Bannister. Super good track record. He was also an ex-player, but someone that has a background in analytics, that's kind of self-taught in analytics. And I want to kind of start there and why you targeted him amongst others for to round out your staff on the player development side and how they're going to improve what struggled for a good 7-8 year stretch.
Yeah, I've got personal history with Banny for one. We were former teammates in 2010 in Kansas City, and he was certainly ahead of the times. He the way that he looked at pitching and looked at the game was so much different. He was an alien compared to everyone, and so I had that glimpse of how his mind operated. And then, he finished his playing career and he went into scouting and then eventually, went in a front office / coaching role with the Boston Red Sox and eventually became their director of pitching. And, they won a World Series. He's got a blueprint. He's got credibility, and then he goes to San Francisco, does something similar there. And, Banny and I have always stayed in touch, and once I got the opportunity to lead this organization, you look around the league, you look at the network that you have, and you try to bring in as much talent that you can, and had the opportunity to talk to Banny, and Banny learned more about us and the direction that we're headed, and I just felt like it was a perfect fit. And quite honestly, when you look at some of the pitching free agents that we brought in, even on the non-roster types, in these conversations with agents and the players themselves, I mean, it was very obvious that they wanted the opportunity to work for Banny. And certainly hope that it's a competitive advantage for us. It already has been. He is a great job of identifying pitchers that are perhaps being used improperly, or they're not optimizing their pitching arsenal. So we've been boots on the ground, getting a lot of work in with our arms here the first couple weeks, and it's been really fun to watch. And I look forward to getting some of these arms rolling in games, and then obviously into the season. But yeah, Banny's excellent. He helps from the acquisition front. He helps with Ethan and Matt Wise and our minor league staff to really just implement something that's sound throughout the organization, and I look forward to seeing it play out. But yeah, Banny was certainly one we targeted early.
So that helps answer my next question a little bit. What was, when you took over last September, what was the first thing you're like, I have to fix this immediately, that the fan base may not know, that you immediately sunk your teeth into, that is already showing signs of improvement and paying dividends? Aside from Bannister, obviously you said he's working with the pitching staff, but anything else?
Yeah, I mean, it starts, for me, Josh Barfield's another example. He's a guy that, I've known for years, player, went into scouting and then running the farm system with the Diamondbacks. But identifying people that have great communication skills, they operate with this selflessness. They know how to talk to people. And I guess both in Banny and Josh Barfield's background, because they were players and the personalities that they have, they can lean into tough conversations. Yep. They have the ability to talk to a wide range of people. They're very comfortable in their own skin. And then, so you got Josh, we got Gene Watson, who's been in the game for 30 plus years. He's got 4 World Series rings. Got such a strong network in the game that can find out information on players or staff members throughout the league. I mean, I call him up, hey, what do you have on this guy? What do you have on this guy? He can get it in 5 minutes or less.
Yeah.
So to really be able to do a deep dive on who we're bringing in here. And also, not only the people we've brought in, I just felt like we had some talent that needed to be uncovered and let them go out and they're really show off what they're capable of doing. And that, the best way to do that is structure the organization in a way where it's very collaborative. There's a clear leader in the room. Obviously, I continue to bring up selflessness, but they just operate in a manner of understanding the direction we're going, understand the difficulties of this game, and just relentless on finding excellence.
I was going to say that. You said selflessness a couple times. In your experience, obviously, as a player as well, is a clubhouse, is a baseball team dead on arrival if they don't have that?
I think so. I really do. And it's certainly easier said than done. And that's why, once again, being able to find people that can identify, they know what it looks like, they know what it sounds like. And you bring in as many of those types into this environment, I know positive things are going to happen. But ultimately, you've got to have this bar of excellence, and you need to hold true to that as well, right? I mean, we can sit here and sing Kumbaya. I mean, that's not the idea here, right? I mean, but I think the combination of having the right people, high expectations, and this continuous drive to find ways to get better. I mean, where the game is now with the amount of resources that we can provide our players, and making sure our staff are utilizing the resources, making sure our players are utilizing our resources. So, I mean, the last 6 months, so I'm hired in September, and it's like, all right, question number one, it's like, all right, who are we as an organization, right? What do we stand for?
It lost its identity.
Yeah, that's right. And then number two, it's like, all right, how quickly can we accumulate the talent to really truly compete at an elite level? And number 3, do we have the resources to do it, right? And in the coming months, we'll find out if those questions are answered. But those were the 3 questions that I was set out to at least put us in the best position, for success.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting because I think that's a lot of things that White Sox fans question, is because obviously 2020, 2021, both playoff years, and then it's like what really happened? Like what was it? Just kind of rotting from the inside?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to really pinpoint, this or that were the issues for the underperformance, because obviously there was plenty of talent and there was a level of success. Yeah, we just lost our way. We did. And, going back to identifying the right people to come in here and lead this organization, but both from players and from a staffing standpoint. So, I mean, if you look around our major league staff and some of the additions that we've brought in, Jason Bourgeois, who former player, was with the Dodgers, outfield and base running coordinator. Now he's doing our outfield and base running. You pair him up with a Grady Sizemore, who, with an elite athlete, elite mindset. He's a guy that is, just hungry to get our guys better. There was, I think, 4 or 5 years this guy had like 700 plate appearances, and anyone that's been a White Sox fan has been frustrated with players that just don't seem to be posting or not available, whatever it is, and just to throw him into our ecosystem, right? I just felt like that was a smart thing to do, and talking to players and staff members that have been around Marcus Timms as a hitting coach. I mean, the reputation was so strong, from his days with the New York Yankees and Detroit. Most recently he was with the Angels and working with Ohtani and Trout. And anyway, he's got these attributes for what we're looking for. And to have him come in here and getting paired up with Mike Tozar in the hitting front, and to identify, obviously with Banny and Ethan Katz, and to bring in Matt Wise, who was a pitching coach in the number 2 role. He was the head guy with the Angels and a strong reputation there, just to create these subgroups, these almost departments, let's call it, that are about the right things. I mean, they're and to be able to offer as many resources as possible for these players. So I feel like we're in a really good spot. And then look at Pedro, in year 2 now, and I just watching him operate in this spring training compared to last year. I mean, he's doing such a good job leading this crew. I mean, I was in a morning meeting this morning at 7:30, and just the how he's handling the meetings, how he's interacting with our coaches and working through his agenda. And we've got our wins for the day, areas of improvement. We're throwing video up there on things that fans are probably not even paying attention to. We're Colson Montgomery yesterday with a fake break and moving the infielder in and opening up a hole at second base, little things like that.
Gamesmanship.
Our alignment on a relay throw down there was a triple down the line, and Remillard was positioned well, good crisp throw to him, and then he threw a good throw to third base, a little bit offline. Moncada reacted appropriately. We had Ben Attendee backing up in the proper spot from left field. We had our pitcher in the right spot. Just these little things that I feel like perhaps were I don't want to say overlooked, but they weren't emphasized enough. And we're conditioning our staff and our players to really value, these pieces of a game that lead towards winning a ball game.
Yeah, the game within the game. You touched on the 3 points on your expectations when you accepted the job and everything. And I want to touch on number 3. Like, we all see these charts and graphs floating around the internet saying the White Sox have the lowest analytics department here compared to the rest of baseball, or the lowest research and development department. Is that actually true, or is that just internet assholes being internet assholes?
I mean, it's not completely accurate. I mean, there's different ways to kind of go around go about your analytic process. For me, I like to have it built in every process that we have. I think some organizations kind of can put the analytic group on an island. Yeah, they factor in their input from, or at least they hear it out. But I want it applied in everything we do, from the medical to amateur process, the international process, PD, and certainly to leverage opportunities at our major league level. So, there's different, you've got your in-house, you've got your how you outsource it. So we've got a pretty good team. I think there's some areas that we're still looking to improve in that department, but also where other parts of the organization as well. And right from jump, foundationally. I talk about the international, amateur, PD, and medical, and major league. I want to make sure we're sound in all of those areas. Everyone pays attention, obviously, at the top of the pyramid, right, which is our major league team, the most important piece. But what actually goes into that, that final piece? I mean, you've just got to be so consistent underneath to have success regularly, and you can't cut corners. And, it's for me in my position, I've got to really pay attention to what's going on in the organization. I cannot just focus, solely on our major league club. When I talk about the collaboration and talking to our staff members throughout the organization, setting the tone and making sure that they're valued and important is something that I've really prioritized.
Well, going off of that, obviously everyone in a workplace has the mindset like, if I was the boss, I would do this. So you had some opportunity to work under, Kenny and Rick. And I'm sure when you took over, you're like, hey, if we want to be successful, this is what we need. We need X, X, and X. Did you have that meeting with Jerry or whoever? And how did that go? And what did you ask for? What did you say? Hey, the White Sox need this to be competitive again.
Yeah, I mean, we've had lengthy conversations. And yeah, I was very candid with areas that I felt like needed to be improved, and he's been very supportive. He really has. So, and that's the thing about Jerry. I mean, he's such a fan of the game of baseball. He wants the White Sox to do so well. So I really do feel like it's my duty to make sure that we're excellent in all these different areas. But I mean, I think the advantage that I had is that I've been with this organization and can easily identify areas that need to be improved. Jerry spoke publicly of listen, could have gone outside the organization, hired someone very smart, and of course there's some really excellent candidates out there that could come in here and do a good job. However, there's an assessment period. You got to learn the ins and outs, and that takes some time where I could really jump right into it, and I didn't waste any time. We were able to knock out some of these hires early on in September,
right off the bat, yeah.
and then October, kind of tackling what I felt like needed to be adjusted on our major league staff, and we continue to do that in our scouting departments, and we're going to stay on it. We're not finished by any stretch, but feel like we're in a good position, and we'll adjust accordingly.
Did you feel like some of those things that you're advocating for now fell on deaf ears when you would bring them up in your previous role?
Well, I mean, so much of my time and energy was in player development. That was the area that I can control. Obviously, there's opportunity to share. Perhaps we could do this better and that better. And I mean, it sometimes there's agreements and disagreements, and maybe it doesn't get adjusted as quickly as you'd like. But now I've got this tremendous opportunity to lead our baseball ops department and have the flexibility, freedom, and support to make the adjustments.
Hey, let's pause for a second. Let's talk about Stella Blue Coffee. At Stella Blue Coffee, we believe good coffee is one of life's non-negotiables. Stop drinking those boring, tasteless, big coffee beans and turn into Stella Blue. Remember, your mornings are sacred. It's time to start treating them that way. Not only are Stella Blue Coffee's premium beans sourced from the most coffee-rich geographies on Earth, but they're also Big Cat tasted and approved, which is obviously more important. Stella Blue Coffee's delicious roasts are available in cold brew, K-cups, ground, and whole bean formats to seamlessly fit in your morning coffee routine. Oh, and every bag sold helps save dogs. Head to your local Jewel, Osco, or Mariano's today to find the very best deals on Stella Blue Coffee, or use promo code MID for 20% off any order of $25 or more on StellaBlueCoffee.com. Take back your mornings with Stella Blue Coffee.
I mean, there's nothing better than starting off the day with Stella Blue, though. It's as simple as that.
Go buy some Stella Blue. Simple as that. All right, let's get back on the show.
Now, you said that Jerry's been great about giving you what you need thus far. Right off the bat, he came out and said, like, we're not going to be signing Shohei Ohtani, and the economics of baseball are changing. I understand that completely. How, like, always seemed like, all right, there's the New York Yankees, Los Angeles Dodgers. It's go and get the best free agents possible. Then there's the the Tampa Bay Rays, Oakland A's, for instance, that they're breeding from the ground up. As soon as those guys are good, they trade them. Is there like a plan to find a middle ground, or go to the Rays model, or go after those actual blue chip free agents in the future? Like, what with the economics changing?
Well, one thing that I'd like to avoid are these extremes, right? You hear about the rebuilds, and then we're in this window of success, so now this is the time. And I certainly want to be more consistent, and the way to be more consistent is, once again, being really strong foundationally, see what we have as an organization, and then use free agency to fill those gaps, and not just rely on free agency. And going back to creating a culture and a team and identity as an organization. The best way to establish that is from within. You don't want to be reliant just on bringing in outside aid to help your club. And so that's really been the focus primarily, is making sure that we're just sound underneath. And then when needs pop up, hey, I think we need to go out there and do that and make those decisions as they come. But at this point, we need to figure out who we are. We're still learning about this team and what they're capable of doing. But I feel like we're in a good spot, and obviously we'll just continue to work towards getting a successful team out there for our fans.
And foundationally, you guys have had a stranglehold on the Cuban market for honestly decades, going back to Mini Minoso, if you want to call it that. But it seems like there hasn't been as much of a footprint in other Latin American countries. Obviously there's going to be Dominican signings, Venezuelan, whatever, and then Japan. Is that something you plan on tapping into, or is that like how is there going to be a change there, or how are we looking there?
Yeah, just like, once again, like relying on one area for your success. I mean, I guess on the international side, sure. I mean, we still want to value, players that are from other countries. There's no question. We've invested heavily in the Dominican. We've really improved from an infrastructure standpoint at our just that whole process, that handoff, not only identifying the players, but bringing them into our academy and therefore hand it off to when those players come into our player development system over on the state side. So, but in terms of tapping into certain countries, we can't just focus on one country and not the other. It has been an advantage at times, being able to access some of these Cuban players. I mean, there's a long list of successful White Sox players that have come from Cuba. But I don't want to be short-sighted by any stretch, and certainly that's been emphasized.
And Marco Patti, how's he doing, first of all, and what are you guys looking like with him as a long-term outlook? Yeah,
I mean, I look at the signing period so far, or this window that we're able to sign these players in the 24 class, and we've got some interesting players. We've prioritized more on the pitching front. And finding arbs, whether it be high dollar, low dollar, we don't close the door on anything, being open-minded, bringing in, Brian Bannister comes into play here, and identifying players that have these attributes that we feel like we can groom and develop into major league players. I mean, Marco's had a lot of success. He's continued to work hard. He and his staff, but most importantly, quite honestly, is when we sign these players, that we have a strong foundation both at the academy and for the handoffs when they come stateside.
Okay, and then let's fast forward to May, June, middle of the season. First of all, when you're the head of the player development staff, are you watching box scores of the major league team, or are you watching the games? Like how into it are you at the major league level?
Well, it's for one, being a farm director. I mean, I don't think there's a job that can prepare you more than being a farm director. Prepare you for pretty much anything. The amount of the amount of players that you're managing, the amount of staff, but that extends to the major league club too. I mean, if there's an injury or some sort of need, you need to be paying attention to who's available to plug in whatever's needed. So that communication with the GM or the assistant GM is vital. So, yeah, I mean, you've got your eyes on everything. You've got video, you're in person, you're watching box scores, you're reading reports, you're continually talking to staff members. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much controlled chaos, quite honestly, and you've got to be as organized as possible and be you've got to be readily available to take that phone call, receive that text that so-and-so fouled a ball off his foot. He might be going to the IL, and you got to make sure you've got that answer. So, in going back to bringing in Josh Barfield and hiring Paul Janisch, and Josh with his prior experiences running PD, and Janisch, who's ultra talented, just came from Rice University. He's got a great feel for the game, communication ability, aligns with what we're about. But just having that support system and that group overseeing PD now is pretty exciting for us.
So the reason I ask that is because it's officially wins and losses are a direct reflection of yourself, and prior to this year, that wasn't exactly the case. So say it's May. Teams, it's maybe, I'm not talking in terms of wins and losses, but it's not playing the brand of baseball that you had envisioned them being playing. And this is completely hypothetical. I'm not predicting that's going to happen or anything like that. But what kind of GM are you going to be, the Billy Bean coming in there flipping tables and saying this is what losing looks like? Or because you're an ex-ball player, you're a competitive guy, obviously. You demand success, I'd imagine. And what's that going to look like?
I mean, you got to have a pulse of what's going on within our coaching group and our player group. And yeah, there might be a time that maybe you gotta go in there with a little bit of fire. You hope that's not the case, but you got to get a read on the situation. And really, you just, that pursuit for excellence, whenever you feel like that bar is being lowered, it needs to be addressed. So there's different ways to respond. I think anyone that's been around sports and you watch the guys that you see them laying into players, or you hear these stories of laying into the staff. That can be powerful, but also that can work against you as well. It's not always the answer. It's really about finding the solutions and having a full toolbox to be able to perhaps help find that solution. You gotta be open-minded on what you're bringing to the table that day, so to speak.
And with the guys you targeted, I'm talking about specifically like the Paul DeYoungs, Nicky Lopez, Moose. You guys just brought in professional ball players, guys that are just baseball players. They're not going to throw up 7-win seasons, but they are guys that any team would love to have because they play the game the right way from the second they walk to the clubhouse in the morning to the second they leave it. I kind of assume that was a way to bring out the best in the core that was already here. Is that a fair?
No, there's certainly some truth to that. I mean, and going beyond just the players you're talking about, a Maldonado, a Max Stassi,
Danny Mendick,
guys that are they know what it takes to be prepared and execute in game. But fundamentally, up the middle, is just so important. I say up the middle, we're talking about the catching position, we're talking about shortstop, we're talking about second base, we're talking about center field. That's always where I start. And, I felt like it was important to address that as early as we could. And that's why, we did the Aaron Bummer trade and got Nicky Lopez. And also we were able to bring in some other arms, too, to help our pitching depth. And then signing Paul early on. So right out of the gate, it's like, all right, we've got sound defenders up the middle that can direct traffic. They're positioned well. They're just heads up players that understand the pace of the game and what it takes. And obviously we already have Louis Robert in center field that covers a fair amount of ground.
Right.
But there's some areas that he can improve too. I mean,
definitely.
Whether it be communication with the right fielder, left fielder, the infielders, some of his positioning. So those are areas that we're readily kind of communicating with him. And then going back to the catching position of a Maldi who's been with the Houston Astros and other clubs, but had success at the major league level. Max Stassi, who also has an excellent reputation, and the impact that position has on the pitching front, right? From a game calling, in-game adjustments, just preparation in general.
Teach you guys how to bang on trash cans.
We haven't had that conversation.
Okay.
We haven't had that
Wink,
conversation. But to add that to our core group, and I look forward to seeing the impact that'll have on some of our arms. I mean, I want this to be an attractive place for pitchers to want to come. So there's some other organizations out there that carry that reputation, and it was important to me, and that goes to the Brian Bannisters of the world, but also improving our defense and bringing in catchers that can put our pitchers in a position for success.
And with those guys, with the Maldonados, with the two local guys, DeYoung and Lopez and Moose and all of them, I mean, obviously it's insanely early. We're a few weeks into spring training, but have you seen any bounce out of Eloy or Makata, guys that thought we were going to have perennial all-stars? They haven't quite been that the last few years.
Well, I can at least speak to how those guys have looked so far in spring training. And Moncada, he looks like he's playing for something. I mean, he's healthy. His at-bats have been really good. He's made some great plays defensively. Eloy's, right out of the gate has been banging. And Louis Robert, I mean, he's obviously going to put together some special at-bats for you. So, those three guys right there, I mean, that whether that's impacted because of the moves that we've made, it's tough for me to really know that. But those guys, they look like they have something to prove this year, prove something to themselves. And, if, Andrew Vaughn, I mean, he's had a great offseason. If we can tap into what we feel like he's capable of doing offensively. Benintendi's in tremendous shape. He's gotten a lot stronger. I sat down with him in September.
Any biceps can get
that's
stronger?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I sat down with him at the end of the year, and we were just talking about, various subjects, but I, just talked about his offseason a little bit. And, he's healthy. He was coming off a hamate injury. But yeah, he definitely was committed to getting a lot stronger, and he was one of the first guys I saw out here. And man, the way that his barrel's working through the zone, he's got some real strength to him. So, you look at just those five names that I've listed, and their offensive potential, to have those guys at the top of the lineup is, it could be very strong.
If those guys do click, that's a good lineup. That's a really good lineup.
Well, that's like the confusing thing. Is
Yeah.
that all the guys that everybody was so excited about for the rebuild that happened are all still here. So is there a way to is there something that you're trying to do that'll get them to click in to get all of a sudden it's hey, the problem wasn't the players necessarily. We just had to manage them the right way.
Yeah, I mean, that is something I was trying to solve, right, this offseason, and that goes to some of the people we've brought into the organization, quite honestly. I mean, whether it be staff members or other players, to perhaps poke them or at least surround them in a way that keep them really hungry. And, so far so good. Obviously, time will tell, but I feel like we're in a pretty good spot right now. We got to keep them on the field. And our best chance at success if those guys are posting on a regular basis.
Well, you made a quick comment about how you're going to use analytics in the medical side too, and I assume that applies to a lot of those guys. What does that look like exactly? What are you charting to be able to keep guys healthy and keep them on the field?
Well, there's so many ways to kind of measure, from an analytical standpoint, on a daily basis, right? I mean, we have the ability to track every movement on the field, right? And if Louis Robert has caught a ball over here, caught a ball over there, caught a ball over here, he hit a triple that night, he hit a double that night, we have that factored into his work for the following day. Perhaps he's not out in early work. Perhaps we've got to watch what he's putting into his preparation for that night. So you've got that piece of it. Obviously on the pitching front, you look at the ball flight, if there's any changes with the release point, just the quality of the pitch, obviously the amount of pitches that are thrown that is tracked and could be adjusted perhaps in their throwing program and their side sessions. So the goal here is to keep these guys available on a daily basis. So we've got that equation, and then there's the expectation, right? We want our players coming in here on the position player front to know that they're expected to play 162. All right. We want that mindset.
I love
right?
that.
Do we know that there's going to be, if we're going to have to adjust from that? Of course, right? There's going to be times where it's a late game, and then you got a day game, and perhaps someone was taxed, or they've got something that's a little tight, or we feel like they're dehydrated, and we need, to kind of watch that. Sure, but when you have that high expectation of posting on a regular basis, or we need you to be available on the pitching front, I think that impacts what you're doing when you wake up in the morning, how you're hydrating yourself, what you're putting into your body, what you're doing in the gym, the going into the training room and making sure that you're stretched properly, or any sort of treatment that you need. So if the expectation is high, then the hope is for players to do what they can to meet that expectation.
And we'll kind of just wrap it up here. What does the 2024 season look like from a success standpoint for both the organization, the 26-man in particular, and you as a GM?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to establish who we are as an organization. I talk about preparation, the style of play.
You were on the grinder ball teams.
There we go.
That's exactly
that's right.
What we want as fans.
Yeah, the detail that goes into the game, right? Early on we were talking about the right placement on relays, or a proper jump from a base running standpoint, playing smart and having an awareness on the field and watching the scoreboard and playing to the scoreboard. That's really important. I've been really proud of the group, of what they've done so far in establishing that, but we need to continue throughout the season, right? So that's going to be the biggest challenge, right? I mean, you hit some adversity, and how you answer back, or at least stay consistent with it. In terms of wins and losses, it's really about stacking up all these smaller wins along the way, and making sound decisions, and reacting, appropriately on the field. And over time, we'll build up, and we'll start having success. We start feeding on that, and before you know, you look up and you look back, and you're like, okay, we've utilized the resources that we have here. We've got enough talent in the room. All right, we're playing together as a team. And we're representing ourselves as professionals at this level, and we're ready to compete.
And I doubt I'm gonna get a non-GM speak answer out of this one. But when can we sincerely expect to compete for not just division championships again, but World Series championships?
I don't like talking about the windows. I don't like talking about these extremes, right?
Yep.
Because I think that there's just tremendous opportunity. If I get too far ahead of myself and say we need to be at this point, at this year, or at this point during the season, I think it's going to be a distraction. It's noise, and we need our guys showing up on a daily basis, ready to compete. So, it's once again, it's going back to the foundation, right? Are we sound in all these different areas? Do we have the right mindset of our players? And if we stack up all these wins along the way, and I mean that from a figurative standpoint, not necessarily wins and losses, from a record standpoint, we're going to be in a good position for success.
And last question on that.
Third last question.
No, this is the second one. Second last question. Just
experience, Chris.
Just new stadium update. That's probably outside your realm.
Yeah, how excited are you to work in
I've
South
seen
Loop?
the renderings like everyone else. And
home runs in the skyline. It's gonna be sweet.
No, it looks beautiful. I know that I can't say that I'm an expert in the process of getting a stadium built. But needless to say, just looking at the opportunity to have a stadium like that is pretty exciting for the organization. I'm sure the fan base as well.
You're not going to advocate for why don't we move that fence in a little bit on that design?
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, get Roger Bossard on the case.
Right.
Have him doctor
Best
up.
in the business.
The best in the business. But thanks for sitting down with us. I truly appreciate it. If you would have asked us a couple years ago, if hey, do you want to interview Chris Getz, GM of the White Sox? I've been like, what the fuck are you talking about?
What happened?
What did Hahn get poached by the Yankees or someone? What? But I appreciate it. I'll say that I'll end on this.
Fired up. You got me a little. Yeah, I don't even care about the White Sox. I got fired up.
See, hearing the crack of the bat, I was like, I'm back in baseball
I feel like
right
I smell
now.
a hot dog right now too. Everything's turning up baseball.
Obviously, White Sox fans are frustrated, and we want to see a winner, and that is all we ask. just please, God, give it to us. We know it's going to be probably a year plus of.
Just give him his winner, Chris.
That's all, like,
Can
please.
you tell this guy cares?
Just slightly.
I know I'm a dickhead on the internet and everything, but
it's coming from
it's
a good
because
place.
I love you
I
guys. It's
understand.
because I love you guys, and all we want is just a successful baseball team. And I want it for on a personal level because I want to shove you guys down the rest of the country's throat. That's it.
Well,
I want
think
to be like, hey, I'm the White Sox guy. Like, we're gonna beat you this weekend. This series, World Series. Come on, let's do it.
But
So,
I do know Dave, and I think he would, at least for this year, settle for a team that plays the right way. It sounds
exactly,
like that's like the overriding
when you guys
message.
brought Danny Mendick back, I was like,
We are on the right track.
that's
Let's go.
right. Guys, baseball players.
Yeah,
baseball
that's right.
players. It seemed like that got away from us for some reason. But appreciate you sitting down from us and
Any
let's
last
go win
questions?
baseball. Yeah.
Any last questions for the fifth time?
Do you still watch The Amazing Race?
Only season 23.
Only season 23. Yeah.
You know,
they don't
I
even
mean,
know what I'm talking about. I
honey,
don't
can
think.
we get first place
Yeah.
this time? All right.
His
fifth
wife
place.
is on The
Yeah.
Amazing Race.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
But that's a wrap.
Thanks, Chris.
All right.
All right,
Thanks,
thank
guys.
you.
All right, that was White Sox GM Chris Getz. Thank you again to him for jumping on.
I liked him.
I liked him too, and that's it. I honestly,
Easy for us to like him.
yeah, it's easy for us to like him, right? You're
nice.
very right, and like
That's all I care about.
I think it was too like what the little fodder you have before and after the show. That's what I was
Yeah.
like, all right, like because you get a
He's
little
a real
bit more-
human.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm not saying he was disingenuous on the podcast, but he was definitely like he
Let it rip a little
yeah,
bit,
let
yeah.
it rip a little bit off which I appreciated. So, thank you to him. And before we continue our show and get into our Bears talk, we want to talk about Dave & Buster's. Dave & Buster's is the best place to watch basketball this March. 86% of American employees will spend at least some time at work keeping track of March basketball. Stop pretending to work. Watch the games at Dave & Buster's. On March 21st, Dave & Buster's nationwide will have an all-day happy hour to celebrate the first full day of games.
Can you imagine your team is already down 30? You don't even care anymore. You can just waste time in the arcade.
Yeah, that would that would be like, a nice little pick me up.
That would be me at Papa Shop being like, see, just hit your free throws. I can
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, it'd be a nice reason to work from Dave & Buster's, and you just get the apps going.
Yeah. Apps are good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave & Buster's great. Who doesn't love Dave & Buster's?
I love it.
Right? So stop pretending to work. Come to Dave & Buster's on March 21st for all-day happy hour and all-day basketball.
I'm getting really excited to frame going to Dave & Buster's as a business trip.
Yeah. I mean, hey,
Yeah.
that's the ultimate. Like, if a coworker, like even now, but back in like our real work days, someone's like, "Hey, you guys want to go to Dave & Buster's for the games?" I'd be like, "Hell yeah!"
Oh,
I'll be at the
Absolutely. I
I'll
would
be at
love to.
the Crane game with a couple of 9-year-olds behind me and be like, hey, I'm here on business.
Yeah.
Right?
move it along.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right then, Bears talk to kind of end out the show here. We get into the free agent signings, but like I said, as of today, Wednesday, it appears that nobody wants Justin Fields,
Yeah.
which like it kind of hurts
I think.
a lot.
Yeah, I think it is just some of it. I think is circumstantial. I think it's a very it's a deep quarterback draft. People like the quarterback, so we could see as many as 5 drafted in the first round. So that's a problem. So if you're Denver or one of these teams that might have been in the market for a quarterback, you're probably sitting there being like, same question the Bears are having. Would you rather have Caleb Williams and start that clock over, or would you rather have Justin Fields and it's like you have to re-sign him after a year? Every other team that is near or is in the first round that theoretically needs a quarterback for the future is having that same conversation. And, then Kirk Cousins becomes available and Russell Wilson becomes available and all the potential landing spots for Fields dried up. There's nowhere for him to go.
Pittsburgh made the most sense, I think, in hindsight. And
Do you think Poles just misread the market or mistimed it? Because we had that video come out like, oh, he's going to Atlanta, and then his agent or whatever, that manager or whatever, and then nothing happened. I wonder if.
Well, now they're pitching it as they haven't made the move, or at least I saw this yesterday. Maybe it was from Schefter or Rappaport. From Rappaport, that they want to be certain about Caleb Williams beforehand. Like this is just like them doing their due diligence. So kind of spun it that way.
That's an interesting spin.
Yeah.
I heard, that I saw another report that they're doing their homework. They're up in Oregon and Eugene right now for Pro Day, or were earlier in the week. doing their due diligence on Bo Nix. Like, this is one of those things where you can do your interview process and dig around and all that, but you've known that you're having the number 1 pick for at least 3 months now, and you knew you're going to be in the top 5 for probably 5 months. So you should, like, he's not playing any more games between now and the draft. Like, all the film is there. You got, like, if that's the spin, like, hey, we're just still doing our due diligence, well, to me, you guys are late.
I'm not saying it's that's just spin.
I think that's more leaving no stone unturned. Like, they cannot possibly fuck up this first pick thing because it's not happening again in a long time.
I agree.
So I don't mind them doing that.
But if it fucks up your process with finding a buyer for Justin Fields and by not moving fast enough and they're taking a quarterback. If you want to do your due diligence, they're taking a quarterback, they're resetting the clock, all of that. We've talked about all of that. It feels like they've made their decision on that. No?
Yeah. No.
Because if you were going to trade the pick because you like Justin Fields, you probably have traded the pick by now too.
Yeah.
So if you knew what you had in Justin Fields and you believed in Justin Fields, then everything else doesn't matter. You work to trade the pick. No?
No, yeah, you're right.
So
you're right.
I think that they're probably
that's just a theory
that they put out there.
Yeah.
I think it was mostly circumstantial. I think Fields is good enough to be a starter in the NFL. I just don't think that there's an opportunity right now.
I don't think he will be though.
I don't think he will be either.
It's pretty clear he's going to be back up.
So now it's like he's got to do he's got to do the Mitch Trubisky. Or you go to Buffalo, he's behind Josh Allen. Oh, you got to, and then you go and get Pittsburgh convinces themselves that a year of you being a backup has increased your value. And then you hit the market again as a free agent.
I think he has a better chance of ending up in a good situation as a backup rather than like a Mitch situation where it's like you're never beating out Allen. Whereas if he does go to Seattle, like there is a real possibility he could overcome Geno at some point. There's no disrespect to Geno, but he's
possible.
Last legs.
Yeah, he's an older guy, and if the season starts not how you want, you could make a little change, and like people would be excited, and you could sell.
Yeah,
That's really.
I don't think that's his. I've seen the latest rumor is Fields to Philly, and you back up Jalen Hurts, and you're in that offense and in that system, and that's the Mitch move, where you go to a place you're not going to start, but your perception is everything. Like the Bears are a fucking disaster. Getz ruined them. They didn't have weapons. They didn't have a line. You go there for a year, you learn, and then you come out again as a free agent.
Dude, it's so crazy. I can't believe that this guy's not going to start next year.
Yeah, I mean, I do think he can be good enough to be a top 15 starter in the league. He's just not, I don't think teams are interested in that right now. It's almost like, I know Atlanta signed Kirk Cousins to 4 years, but I still don't even hate them still trying to, hey, we'll give you a 4th rounder for Fields, and those are your backups. Get rid of Desmond Ridder because he stinks, and they have Heineke there last year too.
Mm-hmm.
So now our quarterbacks are you're gonna do, an elongated version of the Mahomes where he was behind Alex Smith, and he can do that, wherever. But like you're the heir apparent. You're in your hometown. You're gonna sit for a while, but you are the heir apparent.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a wait and see. So.
What would you do if you're the Bears now? Because you and I
you can't have them on the same team.
I agree.
You cannot do that.
I think if it comes to it, I think I would just cut Fields before. If like you can't get anything.
When's the date for that?
To cut him, I don't know.
Because there is a date.
Yeah, for money reasons. Yeah. So
I think that's crazy.
Why is that crazy?
Because you can't cut him.
Why?
Because you take a fucking 7th rounder before you cut him.
Sure, but if there's no market,
there would definitely be a market before you cut him.
Okay.
Regardless if it's
someone's giving you something.
Yeah.
For him, yes.
But like, all right, so sure. So would you take a 7th rounder for him? Or would you take what did the Patriots get for Mac Jones? A 6th from Jacksonville, right? Would you take a 6th round pick for Justin Fields?
I mean,
would you rather have a 6th round pick or start camp with Fields with the Bears and hope for the best? Hope for a 2nd.
I mean, if Poles does his due diligence and that's like all he believes he's going to get, then I guess you got to do it.
Okay, but then you have the Kyle Long scenario where he's like, bring him into camp, wait for an Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins situation or Achilles type thing or a bad injury to somebody's starter, and then you flip him. Then you can get more. But to me, if whoever you take at number 1, is the most important player the Bears have had in 30 years.
Ever. Yeah.
So you have to make it as perfect as possible for him. And if that means taking a 6th or 7th or flat out cutting Justin Fields, be like, hey, we couldn't find a home for you, go find one on your own, then I think that's what you got to do. I think you have to clear the runway for
That'll
him.
never, ever, ever, ever happen. Mac Jones was so fucking bad, and the Bears will get a 5th.
Get a 5th. Yeah, I don't care where he goes. And that whole I think Poles kind of running his mouth a little bit during the process. Well, we want to do right by Justin Fields. We want to do I think he kind of softened
his hand.
Yeah, by how public, how public he was. And now he kind of has to backtrack and you just get what you can get.
Yeah, I think
but
I don't think it'd be the end of the world like you're
they
saying.
Want to do right by Justin Fields. Doesn't have to mean we are going to absolutely do right by Justin Fields.
I agree. I just don't think he should have said that.
He's actually been pretty good as a whole about keeping his mouth shut.
I think he's been pretty good as a whole as a general manager.
Yeah,
but this is the biggest decision he's ever going to make. And
the first pick that's the pick.
The quarterback.
Getting rid of. Did anybody think that? I mean, then this past season, rumors started flying around like, "Ooh, what if they could get a first for him?" Everyone was like, "Are you fucking serious? Trade him now."
The big guys were saying.
Yeah, I know. So I think that kind of inflated our sense of value for him as a fan base.
I don't think
I don't think
it'd be as much of a controversy as you're saying.
To have him in camp?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Do you think that's ideal for Caleb
I think that is awful for Caleb.
That's the question. Do you think that's ideal for Caleb?
Guys, the writing's on the wall. You'd just be buying time.
Do you
the writing's on the wall.
I want you to answer the question I asked.
What?
Do you think having Justin Fields there is ideal for Caleb Williams?
If Justin's not a dick, it's not a big deal. And I don't think he would be a dick at all.
I think it's you would have the guys on the team who have publicly been like, we love Justin Fields. Justin Fields is our guy. He's our leader. He's this.
I don't buy any of that.
You don't think there could be a fractured locker room? Oh, and Caleb Williams gets off to a rough start and everybody starts clamoring. I think it would be a distraction beyond belief to have Justin
I don't think
Fields.
DJ Moore gives a shit who's throwing the ball to him.
It's a distraction for 8 weeks. Then you trade him and it's over. See ya.
I don't want to take any chances. I don't want to fuck anything up for Caleb Williams.
That idea.
I want to clear the runway, and this is not.
I mean, listen, it's not going to happen.
What?
So it's a kind of a dumb thing to argue
They should trade him now.
Because he's not a quarterback you want at the deadline. Like he's a guy you're going to get him to learn the system. Because there's a reason why it didn't happen.
Right. And but that's my point about cutting him. So if Fields is not a guy you're going to bring in late to rescue your situation as a deadline guy because he needs it then, and there's no market for him now, then what do you do?
There is a market. They're probably just waiting. They were waiting it out, and it didn't. It obviously didn't work.
Every spot is filled. Except
I'm looking now. I don't see New England, but they're just going to take May or whoever.
Daniels or.
Yeah, it's
there is nobody in the AFC that needs a quarterback at this point.
You could argue the Raiders, but they have Getsy.
Right.
No, they just got Minshew.
Another analogy.
That's fucking crazy too.
That Minshew.
What are the Giants
Minshew
doing?
And Sam Darnold, because Sam Darnold went to Denver. If those guys are more, people are like, do we want to give up who knows what draft pick for Fields? Or do we want to have this guy that failed in 3 different places? Yeah.
Although I wouldn't say Minshew failed. He was right there on the cusp of a playoff play.
Yeah, but
Minshew
there's a reason Minshew is on a new team every year.
Minshew had a good year.
He's fine.
Yeah,
he's fine.
He's the best backup in the league.
Sure. He's fine. He's backup.
Another analogy.
What about New
Justin
Orleans?
Fields is Will Smith, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, when his dad ditches him. Why doesn't no one want me, man?
Yeah.
I mean, it honestly makes me sad.
I know. Just because I like him.
Yeah, I do too. He seems like a good guy.
Yeah.
But it's where we're at. Signings wise, DeAndre Swift is a Bear. Major shakeups in the running back market.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen. Here's my thoughts about Swift, and I tweeted it. Everyone knows he's all the talent in the world.
Mm-hmm.
He's good out of the backfield when it comes.
Good year last year.
Yeah. When it comes to being someone who could, get a bunch of catches, and he could come and really just kind of change the dynamic of your offense. So what you're worried about is why has he never
pop.
met his potential anyway.
Yeah, but like he kind of did last year. He had 1,000 yards rushing and
He
200
did.
out of the backfield.
He did, yes. But it's still like it happened later than you would have thought.
Yeah, and like the Lions felt like they were ready to move on from him too. You know, like they were like, you know what, fuck this guy. We'll pay the money to Monty, and then we'll draft Jahmyr Gibbs. And like they were fine to do that because they didn't get much for him, right? They get a 6th-round pick or something for.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
They traded for him, so yeah, I don't know. I think that he's a better back than Khalil Herbert.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
so
I think so too. I don't hate it. People hate paying running backs. I think it's a fair deal.
I think it's fine.
Yeah,
I think it's fine.
2 years, $16 million.
And they're going to spread those carries. Like the running back room got better. I guess that like if you're looking like the team got better by getting DeAndre Swift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was totally fine with the deal. The Bears have cap space.
That's actually a nice little backfield right there.
Yeah, because I like Roschon.
Yeah,
Johnson
Roschon.
too.
Yeah, that's a nice little
three-headed monster.
Yeah, that's fine. You got 2 guys making shit money, and then that's fine.
Yeah,
probably $10 million across the board on running backs. That's fine.
Gerald Everett, tight end, who is apparently
Lance is shaking his head. Talk to me, Lance.
He's got a lot of run after catch. He's a big boy.
Yak. He's a yak guy.
He's a yak guy. Fantasy football wise, you could always count on him to get like 7 catches and stuff like that. You know, he was decent. He had a good year on when he was on the Colts. He like had 12 touchdowns. That was actually a while ago. He was on the Rams. He gets good yak. He's a big boy. I think he can block. So, Chief, we might get the 2 tight end.
I love the 2 tight end look. I love the 2 tight end offense at 21 personnel. It's my favorite. I feel like you can do so much, and you have both those guys. And a little connection. New offense coordinator Shane Waldron had him for 3 years when he was quarterback coach for the Rams. So there's probably some inside intel there where it's like, hey, like I'm going to use this guy for this, and then you have him in Kmet. And then you got to get another receiver to go with DJ Moore. But then you have all your skills, right? So you're going to get your Caleb Williams at quarterback, DJ Moore, somebody else, and
Tyler Scott.
I wouldn't want to start the year with.
I'm saying he's behind after the.
Oh yeah, but
2.
like you
he's
would
like wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4.
But it could be Roma Dunze or somebody.
Yeah,
that's
what I'm expecting.
Yeah. Yeah, so I hope
I wasn't saying Tyler Scott was her number 2.
Well, I guess he is kind of right now.
Right now,
yeah.
Default,
for sure.
But that's a pretty good skill group. You know, it's probably the best the Bears have had if they add another wide receiver.
Also, you're right about the safety.
Yep,
they signed a veteran.
They signed 2.
Yeah,
yeah. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know a lot about those guys, but
Simone Biles' husband. You don't know a lot about him.
I like the shit that she was talking. I enjoyed that. She was talking some shit about Green Bay. I don't have to hop on a puddle jumper to get up to watch my husband play. So I didn't know that she was married.
I had no clue.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
You did?
I mean, I knew she was. Let me clarify. I knew she was married to an NFL player. I didn't know who it was.
Okay.
And then when I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, that's the guy.
Yeah, I like that. Get her for some Bears games. It'll be nice on the Jumbotron every once in a while. She'll be our own Taylor Swift, American hero.
In the game,
she is an American hero, technically.
The Lambeau game, Jonathan Owens, who he signed, Simone Biles' husband, he took Fields' head off. He like fucked him up really bad. It was gnarly. So hopefully he can, maybe
some
nastiness. Jordan Love.
Yeah. So between him and Byard, you hope you have a good safety, and then I think everybody likes their other. People like Brisker. I think Brisker's solid.
Brisker's good. Yeah.
I think.
Although, can I say this? Like, I know I was on that graphic with them. I was clearly kidding. Packers signed Josh Jacobs. I was like, wait till he meets Jack Sanborn in the A gap.
Yeah.
And Brisker tweeted like, we don't care. Like, dude, they beat the fuck out of us all.
Yeah, he's a little mouthy.
Yeah, like it kind of rubs me the wrong way. Not saying like, say what you want. I'm not saying like you got
maybe win a game first.
Yeah, like we give us like reason to talk shit first.
Yeah.
Or don't do it on Twitter. Like do it to the players.
Yeah.
Keep that one in the group chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then lastly, Darnell Mooney's gone, which
he got a nice payday. Good for him.
He did.
Yeah.
I think he'll have a nice time with Kirk.
Yeah. I saw that.
Totally.
I saw there was a thing where he had an accurate deep ball thrown to him like 30% of the time or something, and the most accurate deep ball thrower in the league is Kirk Cousins. So I think he's going to thrive there.
I think so too. And he'll be single covered. They got Drake London on one side. They got Pitts in the middle. Like he's gonna get open.
Yeah.
And I always thought he was a really good receiver. I love that. I don't know if you saw this. there was a clip of the Amon-Ra St. Brown brothers podcast, and DJ Moore is the guest, and Amon-Ra St. Brown was like, hey, it was after the season, like, let me ask you guys a question. Why don't you use Mooney? He's like, he's cold. Like, he's cold. Like, and like, you guys just, he's like, you either never throw it to him, or when you do, he's like, it's a terrible pass.
I'll tell you exactly why.
And they were both just like, they kind of smiled, and they're like, you're asking the wrong guys. You're asking the wrong guys. And it was like, you know, they didn't want to throw Field or maybe Getzy under the bus, but that was the sentiment. Like,
I think that they were alluding to Fields with that.
Yeah, maybe.
He was a wide receiver too, and Justin Fields is a one-read quarterback.
Yeah, or
their
maybe
first
two.
read's going to be DJ Moore.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I said, like, Darnell Mooney, I quote tweeted it the other day after he got signed, and I was like, man, he's a solid wide receiver. Like, it sucks he hasn't gotten the opportunity. People are like, what are you talking about? He's wide receiver number 2. He started for. I was like, yeah, but this year, like, he didn't get like, it was just. He was completely felt like he was either out of the game plan or Fields just never threw to him.
And he had a few like little nagging things too.
I feel like he was the guy that was in the screenshots for Fields more than anybody. Just being wide open on a seam or something, and then Fields is looking at more.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
He's gonna
He'll be good there.
Because that's how you win with 5th round talent like that. You identify your wide receiver too.
Absolutely.
And you kind of just let him walk. I mean, I kind of get why, because if your plans are to take wide receiver, but we're assuming a lot.
You're assuming that there's going to be one of those 3 studs available.
That's a big question. Too.
That's a huge question. And at that point, I would just go like Fashanu or whatever.
We'll see. I wouldn't hate taking an edge or
Turner.
I was kind of surprised that they weren't in
FSU.
The Bears couldn't come up with the money for Danielle Hunter.
Yeah,
it's big money, but it's only 2 years.
It is a little alarming that we haven't addressed that front 4 much at all.
Yeah, and it feels like if you're an optimist, you're about halfway to what you need on the front 4. But maybe it is Byron Murphy, or maybe they do have Jared Verse or Dallas Turner as like pegged in for that
circled.
Yeah. So
Brad Biggs did say not to expect any. And this is like 3 weeks ago. Not to expect any major free agencies. Like, don't get disappointed when it doesn't happen, which I think a lot of Bears fans saw Christian Wilkins and like a few of those stud front 7 guys.
Yeah.
And the Bears haven't. So
that's like, if you wanted to be insane, like how I was last year, I'm going to try to not be insane this time.
What were you insane about?
That I thought the Bears were going to win 10 games.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a little outrageous.
But they probably should have. They pissed away enough games.
I'm sure a lot of teams have games.
Yeah. But if you like the secondary, we established we like the secondary, right?
No, they got good nuts and bolts.
Yeah, we like the linebackers. You need probably 2 guys to round out the front 4, which they can find hopefully in the draft, or if Dexter or somebody takes a step.
He did take it, yeah.
You know, a bigger. He got better as the year went along, but if he takes a step, you get someone to play next to him, and then you get a D end. And even like Yannick Ngakoue was good once Sweat came in, then he got hurt. You know, so if you find a guy who can come in on 3rd down, pin his ears back and go, okay, you need another wide receiver. And if you wanted to improve the offensive line, I think Poles just really likes Braxton Jones. That's what
Maybe.
So I don't think they'll go. I have a feeling they're not going to go tackle unless Joe Alt's sitting there at 9, which I don't think he will. So, and if Caleb is an improvement over Fields, which you would hope,
he will be as a passer for 100%.
Maybe if he sees the field, he's got a great arm and he's accurate and he's got a good feel for the pocket and all that. But like he has to be able to play an offensive play on time. But like you could say like there's a gleam. I'm not going to do the 10-11 win thing this year.
I will say they absolutely better be competing for a playoff spot.
It's a much better roster on paper, or there's a path to a much better roster on paper.
Yeah.
It's not as many question marks and holes as there was last year.
Do you think they absolutely should be competing for a playoff spot?
Yeah, I think that they absolutely should be competing. This is going to be year 3 of polls.
Yeah, another last place
I'm not
schedule.
saying, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so you said they should be based on how long they've been in the positions. But
that it's go time, Ed. It's go time.
I have a hard time saying it's go time with a
Same.
rookie quarterback.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Same.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they will be sniffing around there just because that's the general
Yeah. Well, the
way
Bears
the
were
league
sniffing
is
around
now.
it last
Yeah,
year.
exactly.
Yeah.
And we were terrible.
Right.
So,
Booney catches that Hail Mary against the Browns.
but like, I'm not expecting a fucking CJ Stroud type year.
No.
Where we're like bursting on the scene.
That's not impossible though.
It's not impossible, yes, but
Right.
not expecting it.
This year I'm going to try to be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, that's a good way to go.
Yeah.
That's a good outlook.
Yeah.
It's a healthy outlook.
Yeah.
All right then.
Trying to be healthier.
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
So let's do one quick roundtable before we go. What do you think as of this moment? Because if he's dealt, it's going to be before next episode, I would imagine, right?
I have no idea.
It kind of has to be.
I have no idea at this point.
I mean, the fifth-year option is you have to decline. The deadline is May 2nd.
So
After the draft.
5 weeks or so.
Yeah, they got a month. So we'll probably have 8 more episodes before the draft, before May 2nd.
But there is a deadline to deal him, isn't there?
No, you can trade him on draft day.
No.
You could trade.
You can
Oh
trade
yeah,
him
you
draft
could,
day.
you could. Yeah.
But even
but-
you could trade him after you decline picking up his option too.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's weird.
Yeah.
I'm with Ryan though. I don't think there's any positive that can come for having them both on the roster at the same time.
Yeah, I guess I'm not as.
But I do disagree.
nervous about that.
I
I
don't
just
think it will fracture a locker room in turn. Like those players, like DJ Moore, does it?
I think
as
it'll
long as
be a
people are feeding
distraction.
him the ball.
I think it'll be a distraction, and a rookie quarterback is going to struggle, and there's going to be noise about who the backup is because there's so many people who are still saying to trade the number 1 pick, and that might not be coming from inside the locker room.
that's like.
But
If you're still screaming for that at this point, you're talking to yourself.
There's a lot of people online, and if you don't think that that's going to be the first question, how are the reps being divided in July? How are the reps being divided? Well, Fields only got 10.
Well, that's where you got to be a good organization. You got to come out and say who our guy is and how everything's going to work.
Agreed.
It's not going to happen though. So I don't know why we keep going in this circle. There's just no way.
I don't think there's any way.
There's no way.
Yeah. Well, but this is coming from the Kyle Long, where it's like that's the best. There are people saying that too. So they got to find a way. They got to just get rid of him. They got to just take a 6th. Who fucking cares? If it's a 3rd round pick or whatever you're holding out for at this point is not going to make or break your Super Bowl. So what will make or break it is doing the same thing where we fuck up the rookie quarterback. And I don't want to do that anymore.
That'd be preferable.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for watching.
The Dart's awesome.
Thanks again to Chris Getz. We will see you guys next week.